Well, the saint we celebrate today, born on this day, is my mother, but we're not going to talk about her today. We're going to talk about another female saint who is actually the first American-born saint, Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton, who we celebrate today. Born just 4 years before the American Revolution to a, as one biographer put, a staunchly Episcopalian family, she married a wealthy businessman named William Seton. However, the business went bankrupt, and William became sick with tuberculosis. Looking for help after having 5 children, they traveled to Italy looking for the wisdom of medical professionals there. Unfortunately, William passed away in Italy, and their very generous friends who were hosting them agreed to continue to host Elizabeth for a couple months. They were Catholic, and she was intrigued by their faith and drawn into their faith and wanted to convert, and she did. But upon returning back to the States, she was denied by the social elites of her family and the New York City and left pretty much penniless and friendless. Local priests invited her to start a Catholic school for the parish, and she did. And by the time she passed away, there were over 20 schools that were founded by her and her community, the Sisters of Charity of St. Joseph. She took religious vows, and women started joining her and following her as they founded schools that would help serve the early immigrant community of the United States. As I said, she is the first American-born saint. Now, what's interesting is America is a melting pot, and in many ways, Elizabeth herself was a melting pot. She knew what it was like to have friends and to be friendless. She knew what it was like to have riches and to have none. She knew what it was like to be of a different faith and to convert to Catholicism. She understood what it was like to have and to have not. But she knew that the measure of her holiness depended on her dependence on God. We see that in our first reading today from St. John's letter. He says, it's not so much that we love God, but that God loved us first, and that we give from his love. We see that also in the gospel today as the apostles wonder how are they going to feed this great crowd. They're worried about depending on their own strength. But instead, Jesus invites them to depend on him in the miracle of the loaves and the fish. They become instruments, simply conduits of God's love. That's what Elizabeth Ann Seton did in her own life. She became a conduit of God's grace, giving what he had given her. So today, as we celebrate the fact that we have this first American-born saint today in Elizabeth Ann Seton, we can also see in her example someone who depended totally on God. So might we today.